Hello, music fans. I'm continuing my series of my top 10 favorite albums from every year in the 70s, and this video is on 1977. Before I get to the top 10, I'll start with a few honorable mentions, starting with two albums from Emerson, Lake and Palmer that came out this year. The Works Volume 1, which is a progressive rock album. It's their fifth album. It has a lot of contemporary classical music as well as folk rock mixed with prog rock in here. It's a double album where each of the three members has a whole side of vinyl to themselves, and the fourth side is a collaboration between all three members. Emerson's side is a piano concerto and is very much that contemporary classical music rather than prog rock. Lake's side is more of a acoustic, folky, ballad singer-songwriter type songs. Palmer's side is experimental, jazzy, and proggy, has a lot of cool percussion, and the last side has them playing Fanfare for the Common Man by Aaron Copland, which is an iconic song that has film score vibes to it. I'm pretty sure I've heard this song in many movies. And then the other album Emerson, Lake and Palmer released in 1977 is Works Volume 2, another progressive rock album, their sixth album. It also has some jazz fusion type of sounds in it, some classical sounds, bluegrass, and folk sounds all mixed in with their typical prog rock sound. The album is mainly a compilation of leftover tracks from other album sessions. And last honorable mention I want to mention is by Judas Priest, and it's Sin After Sin, a nice heavy metal album, their third album. Now let's get into the proper top 10. Number 10 is News of the World by Queen. This is a hard rock album. It's their sixth album. It opens with We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions, which are solid songs, but definitely two of their most overplayed songs, especially in the world of sports. The rest of the tracks are not as recognizable as those two or memorable, but they are all great and they're not as overplayed as those two, so I'm actually more excited when I'm listening to the rest of the tracks on the album besides the first two. Number 9 is Happy the Man and their self-titled album, a progressive rock album. It's their debut. They're an American progressive rock band, and there's a lot of instrumental passages and jazz rock influenced stuff on this album, but it does have a couple of tracks with vocals as well. I think fans of Gentle Giant, Soft Machine, and King Crimson will like this. Number 8 is Point of No Return by Kansas. This is another progressive rock album. It's their fifth album. It features the big hit Dust in the Wind, which is a soft ballad song, but the rest of the songs on this album are progressive and hard rocking. Number 7 is The Grand Illusion by Styx, another progressive rock album, as almost everything on this list will be. This is their seventh album, and it features the hit Come Sail Away, as well as some other cool progressive hard rocking stuff. Some songs and parts sound like progressive rock, other parts sound more like hard rock. And when I was re-listening to it recently, some of this is pretty heavy. It almost occasionally borders on heavy metal, reminiscent of Judas Priest in a couple of spots. Number 6 is I, Robot by the Alan Parsons Project, another progressive rock album on the list. This is their second album, great production and compositions. I feel like their sound really influenced what music would sound like in the 80s. Number 5 is Songs from the Wood by Jethro Tull, another progressive rock. It's kind of more on the folk rock side. It's their 10th album. Yeah, in some ways it's more folk rock than it is prog rock, but there's still some progressive stuff like time signature changes on here. It features a lot of great flute parts, vocal melodies, acoustic guitar parts, but there is also the odd electric guitar part, and jumps into some parts that almost border on hard rock at times. And number 4 is The Missing Piece by Gentle Giant, progressive rock. Again, that's pretty much going to be the genre from here to the end for this year, 1977. Pretty decent year for prog. Although this is Gentle Giant's 9th album, and a lot of people consider this The Missing Piece when Gentle Giant starts going downhill, but I feel like it's still an excellent album, and I actually think they start to go downhill more on their next album, Giant for a Day in 1978. But my favorite track on here on The Missing Piece is the opener, 2 Weeks in Spain. The songs are definitely more influenced by pop and punk rock on the first side of the album, while the second side has more of their signature progressive rock style. Number 3 is Going for the One by Yes. Progressive rock, of course. Their 8th album, opening title track has a country slide guitar feel. The closing track is almost a 16-minute progressive epic called Awaken. Every song on this album is great. Number 2 is Animals by Pink Floyd. Progressive rock again, their 10th album, the follow-up after the great Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here. This album has 3 songs that range from 10 to 18 minutes, which are bookended by Pigs on the Wing Part 1 and 2, which are both short acoustic 1 minute 24-second songs. My favorite track on this album is Dogs, but I love all of them. And then my number 1, I'll show the prop here, is A Farewell to Kings by Rush. This is the 40th anniversary version that I have on vinyl there. And this is another great progressive rock album. It's their 5th album. My favorite track on here is the 11-minute track, Xanadu, but they're all great. The radio hit on here is Closer to the Heart, and the album ends with the 10-minute mini epic called Cygnus X1, Book 1, The Voyage. And then they continue that with Book 2 being the opening track of their next album, Hemisphere. So Rush is really going to start to dominate near the top of my lists for a little while. I think every year they release music in the late 70s and early 80s. They're just untouchable. They're the best band of this time. Pink Floyd is obviously great too, but probably a close second for my favorite band of the 70s. Maybe I'll make that video at the end. I'm thinking I'll do a top 25 of the entire decade, and it might be heavily dominated by Rush and Pink Floyd music. What's your top 10 albums of 1977? Pop those down below in a comment. What do you think of my list? And stay tuned for my next video, which will be 1978. Until then, peace out.